From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. This is our second episode today, and we all know I can't write 2 jokes in 1 week, so let's just start the show.
Woo!
All right, that's Jim. I'm
Nailed
Nick.
it. You
Time for some
nailed
Pod
it.
Therapy.
If you want to hear some fun stuff, sign up for the Patreon. Because the hour pre-show that we just did.
That's the weirdest Patreon we've done in a long time.
It was a twisty one.
As a matter of fact, we don't have a whole lot of time for the show.
Yeah, that one took a lot of turns. Man, it covered everything from my dreams about Jacob to whether O.J. Simpson may or may not have killed people to fused O.J. Simpsons and coyote bodies.
That's all real.
I'm
all
not
just
making any of
happened.
that up.
Yeah.
And that was probably 20% of all the things discussed. So
Yeah.
that was the real humor
And mega
part of the show.
churches.
And yeah, that's right.
Mega
No, I
churches.
forgot about the prosperity gospel
Yeah.
and my secret blog. There's a lot of things that were in that pre-show.
We talked about my drug usage.
Jeez.
It was
Man,
a very tightly packed pre-show.
Did we also talk about racist mascots? Did that happen
Yeah.
in that one? Or was that in the other show?
I don't think we were recording.
Man, I don't even know anything anymore. Dude, where are we?
Yeah, no, we weren't recording yet.
I don't
That
think
was
we were
like
recording yet. I think you're right.
Hour of trans-dimensional time. I don't even know what happened.
I'm way too sober for this.
Gotta work on that. Well, welcome back, friends. We are taping a double because July is a month for travel and checking out family things and doing fun trips. So for A Block, we actually are going to start with a question. One of the folks that checked out our Reddit AMA wrote us this one. This one comes from Allison. Hi, guys. I just read your Reddit AMA from last week. In this case, I guess it would be 2 weeks ago. And I'm so glad you posted the link to your Tumblr. I'm looking forward to checking out your podcast, too. Oh, wow. You just went through our Tumblr? Didn't go through our podcast?
Wait, we have a Tumblr?
Yeah, that's our website. Our website is a Tumblr, and it's not pornography.
I didn't know Tumblr still existed.
Yeah, it's very hard to create one that is not exclusively
This is
pornography.
legit news to me right now.
So
That
Tumblr
exists.
That's our website. It's a Tumblr, and so yeah, I'm interested that this writer has not actually listened to the podcast.
All right.
That's cool.
Anyway, I have a couple of questions that wouldn't fit in the message box. Number 1. Is it important to resolve the root cause of self-destructive behavior in order to move forward and live a healthy, happy life? Or should a client just accept their past without trying to figure it out and focus on changing their present behavior and circumstances? Number 2, what advice do you give your clients to help them remember to use mindfulness in high-stress situations? Learning how to meditate is easy enough, but it's so hard to remember to try something new rather than reverting to old behavior when you're in the thick of your problems. Number 3, do you have any tips to choosing the right type of therapy, like CBT, DBT, ACT, etc., to suit the person and their goals? Thanks again for the opportunity to ask questions outside of your official AMA. Allison.
Hey, Allison.
So those are all different types of mushrooms?
Yeah. ACT, AT&T, KFC.
Yeah.
These are all relevant.
Depending on which kind of shit the mushroom grows out.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right.
The number 1, and the toxicity of the mushroom. These are different types of therapies.
Great questions.
They are good.
So-
Also, you should listen to our podcast in order to hear your answer.
We'll assume.
I hope you've
you're
discovered
doing
how to
that.
hit play.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with the first one.
Yes.
Is it important to resolve the root cause of self-destructive behavior in order to move forward?
Instead of just dealing with the present and just sort of live from there on.
Depending on the type of therapy that's being done, I would argue it's not necessarily important. So there's this thing called solution-focused brief therapy.
Love it.
Yeah, that I used to do quite a bit of. I remember a story that the professor that taught this to our class, he was a clinician, active.
Mm-hmm.
He had a caseload and everything. And he would tell us about, like, the best way to describe solution-focused brief therapy is he said, imagine yourself and you're on a road trip, you're driving your car, but behind you, you're hauling this huge trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And this trailer is just weighing you down. And you're not getting good gas mileage. You're not going to be able to make it to your destination because you're dragging this thing behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different types of therapies. So like a psychodynamic therapy, psychoanalytical therapy would go in there and would we'd go into this trailer, we'd look at each item, we would assess it, talk about its meaning and where it's coming from, and so on and so forth. Whereas solution-focused brief therapy is just unhitching the trailer.
Right.
So you don't have to go in and actually analyze all these pieces. We start first with, what does it look like when the problem's not there?
Yeah.
How do you behave? Okay, let's behave that way, and let's start taking action that way
Right.
to create the life you want, even without fully digging into the problem. He actually told us this story that he had a client once that came in and was completely uncomfortable talking about the problem that brought him in.
Okay.
So he wouldn't say what it was. And so he said, all right, well, tell you what, let's just do this. Let's just call it problem X, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they did their entire therapy through a couple months
Without ever discussing.
without ever identifying what problem X is.
Interesting.
Because with a solution-focused approach, they just talk about how do you deal with problem X.
Right.
Like what works best when dealing with problem X.
Yeah.
And so he did this. And
I can totally see that.
Yeah, the client did very well, and he never knew what the actual problem was.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely true. And so let's take a real case example. Like something from our mutual work. Let's say you have a person that comes in and says, hi, I'm an alcoholic. I'm drinking too much. I've gotten in all this trouble. And I'm turning myself into the rehab, or I'm asking you to be my therapist to help me with this. A lot of times they'll want to talk about what caused this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we hear this a lot.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, well, I think if I can figure out what caused me to become an alcoholic, I won't be an alcoholic anymore. And more times than not, we'll say to them, hey, that's super interesting. And like, I absolutely want to partner with you on that part of your journey. And that insight's going to be valuable to us. And that's not necessarily going to fix it, right? Because figuring out what broke your car is not going to fix your car. Like, we have to just fix the car. I don't know what popped your tire. We're going to change the tire. You know, that's what we're going to do. And so it's more solution focused in that sense, and it's action oriented. Like, we're going to work on tomorrow, not yesterday, right? And so I think that to the writer, which is more important, it's really difficult because it depends on the problem that you're fixing. Clearly, if you're working on trauma stuff, and you're triggered every time that you see a knife on a table, let's say, because you've experienced traumatic things having to do with knives, I'm not going to be focusing on what you're going to do with a knife tomorrow. We're going to do some insight-oriented work, and we're going to do memory processing. So it is going to be root cause-oriented. So I would say it's a blend of both.
Yeah.
I always incorporate the past into what we're doing, but I'm always mostly interested in the changes that we can tangibly see in the future, which is more of a here-and-now solution-focused kind of approach.
Yep.
So that's the first question.
Second question.
What advice do you give to your clients to help them use mindfulness during high-stress situations? That is tough. It's not easy to be like, okay, I want you to do a 5-sense check-in, when you're triggered, like when things are really rough. It's hard to just summon the ability to use those techniques.
Yeah, so this, I run across this quite a bit because, well, when doing like work in addictions treatment, substance use disorder, because it's easy to get yourself in a mindset when you're in an environment that is meant for that purpose.
Right.
But getting that to translate into the real world and how do you use these skills.
Right.
It's not necessarily, I should back up, it's not necessarily how to use these skills. It's to remember to use those skills.
Yes.
Because when you're in a high stress situation, your focus is on that situation. And it's not necessarily on, okay, I need to, I learned this skill. I need to do this. So I would always encourage people to do something that feels uncomfortable that's going to be a reminder. So some people will like wear a rubber band around their wrist or something like that, or maybe move your watch to the other wrist.
Yep.
Doing something that's just going to feel a little off. And so it's a constant reminder through the day because like if I wore my wristwatch on my right wrist, that's just going to feel really weird and
You're
really
gonna
awkward.
Keep noticing it.
Yeah. And every time I notice it, it's going to be a reminder, practice mindfulness.
Yeah, well, it's actually interesting because that technique comes from solution-focused brief therapy, and it's called an interference pattern. And anytime you run an interference pattern, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to apply that. Like a person's trying to quit smoking, we'll tell them, great, I want you to take your pack of cigarettes and go put them in your mailbox, and I want you to take your lighter, and I want you to go put it upstairs in the nightstand, and that's all I want you to do. And they go, well, how's it going to make me quit smoking? I can still go do those things. I can go get them. Like, yeah, you can go get them, but you can only have one. You can only go retrieve one from the mailbox at a time, and you can only use the lighter in your nightstand, like in your bedroom. I go, well, I don't like to smoke in my house. Okay, well then light it and run. Because you got to get to the backyard, you know, like, and you can't bring the lighter with you. It's got to stay there. And so what are you doing? You're creating this way to mentally check in with your goal, right? And so you're constantly trying to remember your techniques and your goal, and that's what an interference pattern can do. I feel like the life coach has thoughts.
That just seems like a pain.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
Go figure.
It just seems annoying.
It's weird, Jim. I've only smoked 2 cigarettes all week because it's such a
No,
hassle.
I get that that's the goal, but it just seems like I would be annoyed with the person telling me to do that more than anything.
Of course you would. Of course you
Like,
would.
no, that motherfucker. I'll give
I'm
a
not
fuck.
going to do it.
He's telling me that to keep my cigarettes in a mailbox and keep
No.
a lighter at a bedside. That's fucking stupid.
I fired my
I'm
therapist.
out.
I smoked a pack in his office and
Yes.
left.
I blew that shit in his face.
There are ways to do this that may be less intrusive, but are still ways that are going to be like little reminders or
Yeah.
little things that are going to kind of trigger you to remember what you're doing and what you're working on.
I mean, the short answer, writer, is anytime that a therapist gives you a mindfulness technique or any kind of cognitive technique, the real way to have it when you need it is to practice it when you don't. And so, like, getting somebody to ritually practice the techniques, even on simple things, even when they're not, you know, hugely triggered, making it something they do at the top of every hour or something to that effect, or the beginning of every day, what we're ultimately doing is we're training their mind to default to that posture and to use that even whenever they don't think to use it. So it does take time, and it is something that I totally respect. It's hard to just whip out a strategy right whenever, you know, the world's on fire. But that's ultimately what we're hoping to do a lot of the times when we're training a patient in a therapeutic technique, especially mindfulness. We're trying to get them to use it so often and so regularly that it just becomes something they do.
right.
And that's it. It's just building a new routine, which actually harkens back to something called neuroplasticity, but we'll save that for another day. Number 3, do you have any tips to choosing the right type of therapy, such as CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, or ACT? Oh, goodness. What is ACT?
Acceptance and commitment.
Oh,
therapy.
that one, yeah. To suit the person and their goals. So this is a really good question.
I
So
think
none of them were mushrooms?
turns out
You lied to me. I'm going to smoke this pack of
we were
cigarettes.
just trying to
Damn it. I lost another one.
we're just trying to keep you interested. No, a lot of it's going to depend on what it is that you're actually treating, right? Like what is, because different types of therapy are going to respond differently to different problems, right? So
Right.
DBT is going to be something that's very useful for like treating something like borderline personality disorder, and that's primarily why it was
Primarily what
created.
it's for. And it's actually a derivative of CBT.
Yes.
But how do you feel about this? Do you ever have situations where a patient says, "Hi, I want to use ACT. I'm excited to work with you. I want you to use this method with me. I want to use DBT. I've read a lot about it, and I'm excited about it, and I want you to use that."
Well, that doesn't really bother me that much. I mean, I would probably, in that case, I'm not as familiar with ACT as I
Right.
am like with CBT.
Right.
But I've never had anybody do that. Like I've never had somebody I've never had anybody come that prepared that they're like,
I've
I've
had
been
that.
researching all of this.
It's
This
a
is
type.
what I want.
It's a type of client.
Yeah.
And that person will come in and say, you know, I picked you because I like this, that, and the other thing. And you go, great. And they say, here's my presenting problem stuff. And you're like, great. And they seem really well organized. And they'll be like, so I've been doing a lot of research on my conditions, and it seems like DBT or ACT or whatever, you know, other thing they've heard about is really effective for this. And so I'd like to do that. And that's always problematic for me, I think, because different forms of therapy are different theoretical postures. They could be compared to different tools in a toolbox.
Right.
They're more like different styles of martial arts. And so if you come to me and I'm kind of a judo guy and you go, so anyway, I like your teaching style. Could you teach me karate? And it's like, yes, I do know enough of that to know what the hell to do with it at a basic level, but I wouldn't call myself an expert at it.
Right.
And I'm trying to treat you as an expert, right? So I tend to want to use my strategies that I tend to specialize in and use it that way. So it's always been problematic because I don't want to break the therapeutic alliance and tell them, no, we're going to do it my way, because that's also not my therapeutic style. I believe in letting the client lead.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's sometimes difficult because it's like, I don't want you, the person who Googled things, to come in and tell me, I want you to use DBT with me because that looks interesting. Like,
Right.
let me get to know you and let me kind of identify the problems that I'm seeing and let me give you my best tools that I think help with those problems. And I might lean toward DBT stuff, but I don't know. I just, as a therapist, I don't like the patient picking those things like a buffet and telling me, like, it's like telling me how to fix your car. They come in and be like, so anyway, I want you to do this. No, hold on. Tell me about the problem. My job's to fix it. Okay, I'll figure out the tools that are necessary for this. Don't tell me how to do that.
I mean, in that case, what you could do too is you could look into, okay, so what is it about ACT that you like?
Right, that's fine.
Right, and then we'll start digging into it that way.
Yeah,
and figuring.
I never
out,
say no because I'm not going to push anybody away. But I'll be like, yeah, let's incorporate that. But yeah, let me work on it.
Because I'm guessing a lot of the stuff that they like about different models of therapy are probably universal through a lot of different therapies.
But that's what they don't understand is because when they Google a problem and they see the therapies, they start looking up the therapies and they go, that's really attractive. And that's great because they're highly motivated, right? They're doing the research. They're motivated to do it. They want to submit to the theory and the process. That's great. But sometimes the problem is they'll come in and say, I pick this one. And it's like, I'm not a hairstylist. You can't come in and tell me how you want it done. Like, you have to tell me, here's the presenting problem. I partner with you as the expert to help me figure it out.
So I guess to answer Allison's question, maybe the right way to approach this would be pick a therapist and then explore.
Yeah, and that actually is the other
options.
point. So the question sometimes becomes, should you pick a therapist that says that they specialize in a technique that you find interesting and that you want to do? Or is it more important to pick a therapist that you think that you'd connect with more naturally and then conform to their type of technique?
The second one.
The second one overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
The data overwhelmingly says that the techniques, no matter which acronym you parade in front of a person, those techniques do not have the efficacy that the clinician does. The healing instrument in the room is the therapist. The style that they fight with is irrelevant. There's even studies that show that literally archaic techniques like psychoanalysis, which nobody does, is actually still more powerful in the hands of a good therapist than anything else.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. It's about the therapist. So pick the person first and then let the theory come and discuss it with your therapist. Tell them you're open to things, but let them do the picking. And if they tell you, yeah, I don't really do much work in that, but, I'm happy to brush up on it and incorporate it, like, great. But let them guide, though. I think I'm a big fan of that, too.
Yep. Definitely.
Great question. I hope you get to hear our answers.
Yeah. Thanks for writing in.
It took me half of that answer to realize that ACT and AZT are not the same thing.
What's AZT?
The AIDS medication.
These are different things.
Yeah, not the same thing at all.
Yeah. In that case, you should pick your medicine. You should definitely
I'd like to
select
change
that.
my answer.
Yeah. Hold on. I actually have different thoughts now.
I don't even think that AZT is still commonly used.
I don't think so.
But that was
now it's Truvada. I think that's
a PrEP medication, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we are going to discuss...
Rather than dive into that.
Yeah, helping an ex. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is Ellie O'Dare. Today's first trivia question in honor of TheraProducer Ellie is... Are you ready? Okay.
Isosceles triangle.
You are outside a room with no windows. Outside the room are 3 light switches. Only one controls the light bulb in the room. You can arrange the light switches however you'd like, but once you open the door, you cannot touch the switches again. How can you determine which switch controls the light bulb?
And we can't see inside, right?
Correct.
So we don't even know if the light's on or off right now?
Correct.
And there's a way to answer this?
Yes.
Is my goal to get it on? My
No,
goal is I want the light on.
your goal is to identify which switch out of those 3 controls the light bulb.
But I can't see
But
the
I'm
light
outside
bulb.
of the room, so I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, your question's irrelevant.
If you'd
You
like
started
to
with I'm outside. I don't give a fuck if the light's not inside.
Yeah, who
what
cares?
do I
He's
care?
outside the room. Why is it his business?
if you'd like to join Ellie and make the show possible, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com.
If Ellie wants to keep the lights on or
therapy.
not, that's up to her.
So if you push
There is
all
an
the
answer
light
to this.
switches to the on position,
Or to the up
well,
position.
up, I guess, because yeah, it isn't necessarily.
Well, we'll
on.
assume up is on.
Oh, well then push them all up.
But then that doesn't tell you which one controls it.
I don't care. It's on now. And maybe the fan's on too.
Who doesn't want to have the fan on?
So you're telling me that there's a way to select one of the switches to turn on the light and be aware that that's the one that turns on the light.
There's a way to arrange the switches
Right.
in which you can determine which one controls the light bulb.
without being able to see the light
It's
bulb.
not. You gotta
That's
remember-
not possible.
No,
It is.
Jim. You got to remember, it is not necessarily that the light is on.
Okay.
The light can still be off.
Okay.
You just now have the knowledge as to which switch controls the light.
So yeah, which switch is connected to the light bulb?
Right.
That's the goal I'm trying to figure out.
Yes.
Just before I walk in, I want to know which one of these 3 attaches to that light bulb in that room. And I have no way of touching that light switch and seeing the results.
Correct.
And there's a way to determine
All
this.
right.
Yes.
I'm going to say,
There's no
with
way
as
to determine.
much confidence as I can say it,
Am I allowed to go in and out of the room?
No.
that part of the deal is you have to turn one direction or another 2 of the light switches.
I've got it.
No.
I've got it.
No? All right, go ahead.
The surgeon is the boy's mother.
Boom. Because women can be surgeons, Nick.
God, nailed
Do you want to
it.
know?
Yeah, I do want to know.
Go ahead.
Okay. Flip the first 2 switches to on.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Wait 10 minutes. Then flip the middle switch off, and then go in the room.
Oh, you can
If the
you
bulb
can move them more
is-
than once.
Is on,
It's the first switch.
then it's the first one. If it's off, it's the third. If it's off but it's warm,
Yeah.
then it was the middle one.
I didn't realize you could move the switches more than once.
Hey there, guys. It's your old pal, Jeff.
Whatever, Jacob.
Remember when
Whatever.
I would write in almost every week about my failing relationship last year? Good times. Anywho, I've been in my own therapy for over a year now and have
She's
made
a
great
surgeon.
progress. I feel great. I've lost weight. I've launched my own podcast with my
Hey.
best friends, and I'm very happy just being me. Dude, send us your podcast. We'll totally plug your podcast. A couple weeks ago, my ex-girlfriend...
He's our only listener, so I don't know who would plug it to.
we owe that to you, Jeff.
We'll tell you about your podcast.
Also, nobody will have heard about it, but at least you could hear it said out loud. A couple of weeks ago, my ex-girlfriend reached out to me. It was all jokes and playful banter the way we used to, until I asked her why she reached out. She explained that when we were together, we clicked and got along really well, better than any relationship she's ever had, romantic or platonic. She said she misses me in her life and wants me back. My reply to her explained my side of things, saying we will not have that relationship back because my heart isn't in the conversation anymore. I told her I've moved on completely and don't need her or particularly want her back in my life because talking to her brings back pain. It took her a few days to reply, but she said I hurt her with my words, but she understands. She said she doesn't like thinking about the breakup because it makes her feel bad. And I said, good. It should feel bad. It was the death of an imagined future we will never have. After this, she went silent for a week. She got back to me saying that she has never let herself feel the pain. She jumped into the arms of the first guy she came across and distracted herself from all of it. Now she's finally feeling it. She had a breakdown at work, cries almost daily, and distanced herself from her boyfriend. My question to you gentlemen is this. Should I help her? I know the emotions she's dealing with, and I know her, so in theory I could help. I'm just not sure if it's the healthiest decision for me to make. I do still care about her, and I don't like knowing she's in pain. The same pain I felt all of last year. As I am reading this, in my peripheral vision, I can already tell you what Jacob's answer is from the body motions he is making. Hold on, the question's not done yet. To answer your inevitable follow-up question, she was in counseling from May of last year until COVID hit, and her therapist couldn't see her in the office. My ex lives with her family, who is quite judgmental and has no real safe place to have a telehealth session, so COVID put a stop to her therapy temporarily. You guys have helped me before and even gave me the courage to seek out my own therapist last year, and I could never thank you enough, but I hope my Patreon pledge is good enough. Love you all, even Jacob, and hopefully I'll see y'all in Vegas at Scoopfest in 2020.
Aw.
You won't, Jeff.
Too soon.
Too soon. Salt Pork, Jeff Ackerman, a.k.a. the Scoops of War.
So I
Just let Jacob go at it
no,
for a minute.
Nobody wants
I've
that.
seen. I've played enough blackjack to know what Jacob is illustrating with his motions, and I think this is the move the dealer makes when they're done at the table, and
yeah.
they're saying that
I only saw it from my peripheral vision. It just looked violent and vaguely
They show
sexual.
the cameras, they don't have anything, and then they walk away.
I do know that Jeff knows that he knows as we're saying this.
Yes.
That Scoopfest has been postponed to next year.
He's aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because Jeff has emailed me about the cancellation or the
He's
postponement.
100% aware of it.
Yeah.
So, should he help his ex-girlfriend get through this?
I'm out.
I think that's a big no from Jacob. It's a no from me, dog.
Sorry, dog. No for me.
Yeah, Jeff. I mean, just the way that you describe how you feel in those conversations, I think that's just bad. I don't think anything good's going to come from it.
Honestly, I don't think you can help.
I think
I think you're in a position where you can't help.
and it's not your responsibility.
Also
she has
true.
a boyfriend. Did you guys catch that part?
Yes.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, she has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
She's not paying much attention to because
She has a
is
boyfriend
hurting about her breakup.
And a family that
Oh.
she lives with.
Yes.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jeffrey, not your problem.
I don't
Not-
think that. Not only do I think it is not your responsibility to help. I don't think you're able to help.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
you are only able to make this situation worse.
Yep.
And be out.
Yep. Not your monkey, not your circus.
Well, okay, but a couple of things to take away from the letter. First, Jeff, I really like that when the conversation came back up, and it was just playful and it was fun, I have no beef with that. I have no beef with you just chit-chatting with her, in general.
Yeah.
You're an adult. And so I always trust, an adult to make that decision for themselves. And also because you achieved some insight talking to her, right? I mean, as you were talking to her, she kind of starts going back to the good old times and nostalgia and kind of bringing up like, hey, I know I'm in a relationship now, but I kind of miss you. And what do you think about that? And, couldn't it be like old times? And I appreciate your insight, Jeff, where you kind of looked at that and said, no. And, I detect a little bit of resentment. It came out with a little bit of spark.
Sure.
He took a shot and he kind of said, no, you sort of ruined it. My heart doesn't feel for you anymore. That's not a thing. And no, and I like that boundary though, Jeff, because that's kind of what I see you doing there. I see you saying, I have enough self-awareness. I don't want to regress. I don't want to go back. I've spent a year recovering.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard for me. And I remember your letters, Jeff.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was a very complicated situation. It involved a very broken friendship as well. There was a lot of pain. And so like this, I think that was a very healthy move. It's interesting that after you took that boundary stance, now you're kind of feeling this sense of like, but I want to help her. And so, Jeff, I guess the thing that I would come alongside you to challenge is, buddy, you don't have to rescue. You don't have to be this fixer. And I know that it probably is your nature that seeing somebody struggling, seeing somebody in pain, and feeling like you could in any way contribute to their solution, it's hard for you to resist doing that because of your common humanity and you're a kind person. A lot of people have that kind of disposition, right? And sometimes it grows to such a place that it becomes codependency. But it's really, really healthy for you to actually take that big step back and remind yourself, you didn't cause this, you can't control this, you can't cure this. The Al-Anon mantra. It's okay to allow somebody to experience the consequences of their choices, and it's okay to allow somebody to experience pain. Mm-hmm. And she does have a therapist that's currently interrupted. It's not your job to solve it, but I think Jacob's right. It's probably not within your capacity to solve it.
You know what? Jeffrey, I think the best way you can help is doing what you're doing. Setting a boundary and not getting involved.
Yes.
You are helping her.
Yes, good point.
You can be a friend.
That is the way to help.
You can be a friend with boundaries.
Yes.
You can let her know that she has your support.
Yes.
That's fine.
And also, I think Nick's right, though. Sometimes what we fail to see is you're actually helping somebody by declining to offer help, right? And, sometimes that's actually giving them the space and opportunity to learn how to be self-reliant and self-efficient. Jeff, nobody could have done your own emotional recovery for you. You had to go through your own pain. You had to seek help. You had to get advice. You had to select a therapist. You had to proactively lean in on that. If you would have had a friend or somebody in your life who was kind of leaning over you, setting the table for you all the time and cutting your steak into little bites, that's preventing you from learning self-reliance. And you need those strategies to be somebody who can cope. So honestly, I think Nick's right. The kindest thing you can do is nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's self-preservation. You got to take care of yourself, and you have to. If it hurts you to have contact, then don't have contact. I think that's. I mean, if you leave a conversation just feeling bad and feeling hurt, and all these feelings just resurface, that's your body telling you something.
Well, okay. Question for both of you guys, based on his letter.
Do I want somebody around to cut up my steaks?
I mean, I'll help. I won't do the whole thing. But here's a thing that I kind of detect in here too. It almost sounds like he wants closure, and is almost trying to reach for closure by revealing his own pain to her. He's saying he's taking some shots, and it's working. And she's saying like, it really hurts me. And then I almost see him regretting it and being like, hell, I feel like I just threw dirt in her eyes. Like maybe I should help, and he seems like now he's conflicted about that. What do you think about closure looking like this?
Are you saying that you think that's the reason that he wants the help is because he feels like he's created some of the pain?
I wonder if that's a part of the formula here. I mean, based on some of his earlier letters, I get the feeling that Jeff is the kind of guy that would just want to help anybody. But also, I mean,
Jeff's a nice guy.
He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
But he talked to her. He had an opportunity to sort of let it out. You know, he could have just been like, yep, pleasant, nice talking to you, high five, handshake, talk to you later. Hey, you ever want to get back together? Not really. Good luck with your new relationship. Bye-bye. And instead it was like, no, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little taste. You know, a little taste of the pain.
Yeah, because it is an opportunity to finally unload
How do you feel
stuff
about that?
you've been dealing with.
But do you think that that's helpful for closure?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it probably helps him in the moment. You know, to finally have that opportunity where you can say, hey, you know what you did to me? Like, do you know everything I went through as a result of this? To be able to actually explain that to somebody else probably does feel pretty good. And maybe that is a step towards closure.
Maybe.
But I think once you've done it, then you're done.
There it is.
You don't need to continue doing it, because then now you're trying to get some sort of pleasure out of doing that. And it's not about getting it off your chest. It's about, I still have issues I need to work on. I still have resentment that I'm carrying, and I want to dump it off of you because it may help me deal with my resentment.
Yeah.
And that's not really going to be a long-term solution.
Yeah, and whatever resentment you have there, I mean, that's on you.
That's
You
what
got to
I
deal
think.
with that.
Yes.
But that's my point. Is like, I'm kind of worried about that. Because if
Yes.
the
I
guy
got
still
you.
has some resentment, and it's like, well, be careful, man, because if you start getting in a lock horn match with somebody and you're getting your cheap shots in, and now they're crying and then coming back to you, and you're getting
Right.
to see the feedback of what your words caused, guess what? You just formed a new relationship with that
Yeah.
person.
Right.
You're now in a new dynamic that didn't used to exist. They used to not exist. Now they exist.
Yep.
Now they're in your head, and now you're worrying about the pain you've inflicted or whether they're going to be okay. 3 weeks ago, before you last talked to that person, you didn't have those things.
Yep.
And so I'm very cautious about that kind of stuff because I'm like, listen, if that person really doesn't matter to you anymore, let them disappear.
One of the
I would agree.
looking back on it, I've looked back on this with therapists and with other people. Looking back on it, I think this is one of the healthiest moments of my life. And there was
Being on Pod Therapy.
exactly.
This one. Wow. This is
And
the
thank
one.
you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.
That's all we wanted to hear. Yeah. Jeez,
we
it took
did
us
it.
3 years. Was that
this
hard?
whole thing was a sting. There is no show.
Okay, go on. Go on.
No, so this woman that I dated, and we dated for a while, and we dated seriously, and it was unhealthy from the beginning for lots of reasons that I don't need to go into because they're boring and silly. But it was very unhealthy from the beginning, and we separated. We broke up, and I honestly don't remember who broke up with who. I think I broke up with her, but I could easily be wrong, and because this was a very long time ago. She came to me out of the blue, probably 5 months,
She throw rocks at your window
4 or
one
5
night
months,
whenever you were high.
with just like rocks, and she was trying to scare me.
She knew I was high.
And it worked. It worked a little bit.
Sorry, go on. 5 months ago, she came back into your life.
So 5 months later, 5 months after we broke up, she came back in and announced kind of out of the blue that she wanted to rekindle this.
Okay.
And it was and it reminds me of the situation with Jeff.
Yeah.
And I think one of the healthiest moments of my life, and I don't think that I know that I didn't know this at the time, and I know that I didn't know that this was a good decision at the time, but I just said, no,
Just nothing.
we're done.
Didn't open up a new conversation.
I'm over this, and we're out.
Right.
And I really think that she just came along at the wrong time.
Right.
I think that she just came along for her.
Sure.
I think that she came along at a moment where I was feeling pretty good about things, and that she happened to be feeling bad about things, and it just happened to be that time where I was able to say, like, no,
Yeah.
no, we're done, we're out.
But that's a profound feeling.
If she had come in a month earlier or a month later,
Maybe different.
probably different.
When you
Right.
were at a worse
Yeah.
place, yeah.
Yeah.
She just happened to show up when I was in a good spot, and that reminds me of Jeff right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sounds like she's showing up when you're at a pretty good spot right now,
Yeah.
and let yourself just hang out at that good spot.
Right. Right.
You don't need to do this, and you don't need to do all the other stuff that's going to be involved in this.
Yes.
Let yourself just be in that spot and say, like, hey,
Take care.
you know, I dig you. We got no trouble. I got no beef with you.
Yep. Good
But
luck.
we're done.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
And there's no, like, I think that's
We can
one
be
of the-
friends.
Yes.
You got my support.
Yep, bye-bye. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of toxic relationships, though. That's why I'm so nervous.
I'd like to rekindle our dumpster fire.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Like if we're even
while it was a
talking about
dumpster fire, it was warm.
Yeah, there was warmth in that dumpster fire. It's a very warm relationship. Like I think about a work relationship I had where you and I once worked for a company. That company let us both go unceremonially. It was this big, huge disaster. Then later on, that company called back each of us and begged us to come back.
Yes.
And when that happened, there was a part of me, kind of like Jeff, where I wanted to take my shots. I wanted to be like, oh, do you need me back now?
Yeah.
Oh, did everything I warned you that was going to happen? Oh, are you desperate? Oh, are you willing to give me a big old bag of money just to say yes? Guess what? Piss off, and like I wanted to take my shots and like I thought that'd give me closure. But then the thing that I kind of realized, and I think even though it's a work relationship, I think it applies to other relationships, the human on the other side of that was just a toxic person.
Yeah.
I don't want any more connection with that toxic person. Even a fighting thing. Even me getting in my last shots as I'm walking out the door. If that person really doesn't exist in my mind anymore and I'm better for it, then I'm not going to invite them to live in my mind at all.
Yeah.
And so I just said, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm not available for that. Take care, though. Good luck. Bye.
Yeah.
Not one negative word. Because I don't want to do that. And I didn't feel like, well, maybe I should help them fix this problem. Maybe I could jump in. No. I'm doing okay. And that's all that matters right now. They made their choice. I made my choice. I'm going to give them the dignity of their results, the dignity of their conclusions. Go on and carry on. And Jeff, I think the same thing for you, man. I don't want you to get tangled up in their web again. You got to be careful though, because if you get in your shots, sometimes you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or you feel like, oh, well, now I'm talking to them. Now I want to see what they say back to me. Like the fact that he said like, oh, she didn't reply for a week. Okay, that means you were aware. Because you were waiting. Because what you said deserves a reply.
Right.
Guess what? You're in a conversation now.
Yeah.
Do you know how long it takes Jim to reply back to me when I text Jim? I have no idea.
Because I've never texted Jim.
Well, I do text Jim, and I can tell you he doesn't text back.
I could not tell you how long it takes Jim to text me back because I don't care.
None of you commented on my emoji I sent you guys today. On the way to the studio, Jacob was like, I'm running late. And Nick was like, yeah, I was about to say I'm running late too. And I sent an emoji. And I tried to go through my list of funny emojis and pick one that would be random. And I sent it and nobody said anything.
Jim, I saw your emoji.
Do you even know what it was?
I saw it.
What was it?
No, I don't remember.
You didn't see it.
I
Nobody
did
even
see
looked.
it.
You probably glanced at it and said, I don't give a damn.
I saw it.
I'm wondering if
exactly what I said.
That's exactly what I said. Get out of my head.
I was a merman.
It was a merman. I was like, yeah, this is irrelevant to the conversation.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, Jeff, send her a merman.
Yeah.
That's what I think you should do.
I've continued to not comment on the merman.
Give her the merman. Just sink beneath the waves. One middle finger extended above. And then dip down.
Try to dent
her.
All right.
The merman.
We've got one more question.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are discussing becoming a therapist. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Don't do it.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is Judy Schneider. Our second question in honor of TheraProducer Judy is: in his youth, a man decides to take a trip to visit the Great Pyramids of Egypt. He is deeply moved by the trip, and years later, he decides to take his son, who has never been away from home, to see the pyramids. Here's the catch. The man made his trip to the pyramids in 1995, but his son made the trip to see them in 1969. How is that possible?
Mother's the surgeon.
If you would like to join Judy Schneider and make the show possible, you can do so by going to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
Women can be surgeons, Nick.
First, I just want to congratulate you. Since you've taken over the commercials, they have really improved in quality. I used to just copy stuff out of Wikipedia and read it and replace their name.
I gotta tell you,
these have gotten really good.
I gotta tell you, that is more damning for you than it is praise for Nick.
See, I don't care. I just heard praise.
Yeah, it's fine. Take all the praise.
All right, wait a minute. So Guy,
the kid.
So read again.
Well,
Okay.
the kid's been to the pyramids in 1969.
The man visits the pyramids in his youth.
Okay.
He enjoyed it, had a great time.
Great.
He decides he wants to take his son.
Yes.
Okay.
So he goes several years later with his son.
Yes.
He saw the pyramids in 1995.
Yes.
He took his son there in 1969. How is this possible?
Wait, he took his son or his son saw them?
He took his son.
He saw the pyramids in 1995. He took his son in 1969. Because
They just live in Cairo?
all you're doing is just leaving out that he also went in 1965 and then took his son a little bit later.
No. Nope.
They just live in Cairo.
In his youth, a man decides to take a trip to visit the Great Pyramids of Egypt. He is deeply moved by the trip, and years later, he decides to take his son, who has never been away from home,
years later
to
is
see
95
the pyramids.
or 69. Years later is 69 because that's when he takes his son.
Yes.
And he saw the pyramids in 95.
First, in 1995. He saw them
And then
first
he
in 1995.
took the kid in 1969.
Yes.
Is it a 1969 automobile?
No.
He took the kid in a 69 Chevy.
He was blindfolded or blind? No, that's silly.
It's 95. 95
You
is
want me to give you a hint?
Yeah.
Yes. You have to consider
Time
the
travel.
pyramids.
And things are the pyramids.
How old are the pyramids?
Old. Very old.
Very old.
Yeah.
The pyramids are very old.
Some would even say older than 1969.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if
Some would say.
he takes his kid.
Some may even say older than Christ.
Well, I wouldn't say that because I think Jesus wins.
Jesus is the
I got
oldest.
it. It's 1995 BC.
Correct.
Yeah! Thank you, Jesus. Got it. Sink the putt. What were we doing? Therapy. Hey, hey,
That
folks.
doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, is 1995 BC.
And he went years
saw
later
them.
with his son in
okay,
1969 BC.
Yeah, but
Great.
he saw
Okay.
them in 1995 BC.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
He saw
And
them
then he
in
went
69.
again in 1969 BC, which
Yes. Which is later.
Under-
more recent than 1995 BC. Got it.
Correct.
I remember there was some meme I saw once that said something like the opening of the first Pizza Hut is equidistant to Cleopatra's reign as the pyramids are to Cleopatra's reign.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect. And I remember
Yeah.
just being like, what?
Isn't that crazy?
That is insane.
Time.
Time
Time's
is
crazy.
Man.
What's like Oxford University was, older or was operational during the Holy Roman Empire?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
weird.
There's
See?
weird things like that.
That's nuts.
That one might be wrong because I'm just trying to remember something.
Nah, it feels right. Let's go with it.
It's something like that.
Hey, folks, I found episode...
Oxford's very old.
That's the point. It's old man Oxford. Hey, folks, I found episode number 3, Game Addiction, and loved it. I'm thinking of becoming a therapist, maybe specializing in game addiction as an ex-gamer myself. How does one become a therapist/counselor/psychologist/psychiatrist? How do you know if this is a good career for you? I have a bachelor's in economics. I spent 6 years abroad performing music. Now, in my late 20s, I'm considering finding a career more stable than musician, capital M. I have lifelong passions for both music and psychology, but would like to do something with which I can both contribute to society and comfortably afford raising a family. Thanks, Radish.
Okay.
Good
Great question.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed that episode 3, when we talked about gaming addiction, I think I mentioned in that episode Game Quitters.
Yes.
Check out that website. It's pretty
Game
cool.
Quitters.
GameQuitters.com with Cam Adair. So how does one become a therapist or get into therapists? You want to start off with a podcast.
You got to get that. You got a solid podcast first.
No, you can get
Or a secret blog.
you can
Make
with
sure
an
your Twitter's
economics
on
degree. Can you just go to graduate school with an economics degree? Because sometimes you don't necessarily have to have a bachelor's degree in the specific field in which you're getting a master's in.
Yeah.
I think with economics, you'd probably have to take some sort of social behavioral sciences classes at a undergraduate level first
Yeah.
before you'd be able to be accepted into a master's.
What I hear you saying is, I hope.
Yeah. So, Radish, I think what you're first going to have to do is go to grad school. That's our first point. And so, obviously, you're going to have to think a little bit about which grad school would accept you based on the economics degree. Sometimes they're like, yeah, if you want to go into, our mental health counseling programs or our marriage and family therapy programs, you've got to have a bachelor's in psychology or sociology, or in my case, religion of all things.
Yeah,
it was considered a humanity.
I had one,
Yeah.
a classmate that had a master's in divinity.
Yeah, and he got in.
And got in.
See?
Yeah. It was a she.
It's considered
because,
the queen of the sciences. So theology
is it?
the
She
queen
was
of
a surgeon.
sciences. The mother was a surgeon the whole time. So
If
yeah,
I could find my keys.
you're going to have to go to grad school, Radish. And when you go to grad school, you do not have to enroll in a doctorate. You can enroll in a master's program. It's going to be a master's program in clinical mental health. And so it's going to be a clinical mental health discipline. In every state, they might have different names for that. It's usually going to be called either clinical psychology, or it's going to be called mental health counselor, or it's going to be called marriage and family therapy, or it's going to be called social work. And you're going to want to make sure that you clarify that you're seeking a clinical track, because there are also masters that are just in psychology, just for funsies. But they're not clinical psychology. They're not trying to make you into somebody who practices. They're just research. So that's important. Note that a master's degree in those disciplines is bigger than your typical master's degree. Your typical master's degree in America is 15 to 20 credits. A master's degree in some kind of mental health discipline is 60 to 70 credits. So it's going to take a while. It's pretty good, though. It's worth it. It's fun. And during that time, you pass all your classes. You do student therapy. You get to be a kind of a junior therapist at a student level and help other people. Then when you graduate that, you pick a state that you want to practice in, which you probably should have thought about during your master's. That way you're gearing everything you're doing toward that state's regulations. You pick a state, you look up the license that you want to have there, you look up the board, and then you look up the requirements. You make sure that everything you're doing in school matches what that state wants to see. Then whenever you graduate, you go to that state and you say, I would like to apply as a licensed intern. And they will have you do some basic requirements. You usually have to interview with the board and pass, in some cases, some examinations. And then whenever you're a licensed intern, you now have the powers of a therapist. You can now go practice in your community. There will be restrictions. You will be under somebody else's license and under an independent therapist supervision, usually more than one. And for about 2 to 3 years, you're going to earn your hours. And so you can earn a living during that time. Most states, you can be gainfully employed during that time. You will be restricted in what you can do, but you're a therapist. And that only takes you 2 or 3 years if you started right now. And then, once you're a licensed intern, you do that for 2 or 3 years. When you finish that, you pass some national examinations. You usually sit for another oral board. And if you've accumulated all of your hours and you've passed all the things you need to pass, then you're a fully licensed therapist and you can practice.
So how do you know if it's something that you would be interested in? I guess some skills that would probably be very useful to have.
Karate.
You'll definitely need to know some kind of martial arts.
Vertical hop, as we've covered in other episodes. Gotta have that vertical.
No, but I think, are you
Solid 40.
Are you a patient person? I think that's very important.
Kinda. I'm not patient. My son criticizes me all the time because I won't even pay attention to a video game's intro where they
That's
explain.
attention.
I have no
Can
patience.
you imagine being Jim's kid?
I can't.
It's not easy, man. They deserve medals. They work hard. I don't think patience is a requirement.
If you're working with people, yes.
A certain kind of patience.
Well, he wants to go into addiction.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that part.
Wants
game addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to be patient because people just don't make changes quickly.
Yeah.
It is a long road, and you
Yeah.
have to constantly be working with people that are going to be
And I would say that
making poor
develops.
choices.
Though. I mean, you develop that as you become a professional.
Sure.
And I would almost recast it not so much as patience, but tolerance. Especially in addictions work, your people are going to up and down, round and round. They're going to break every rule that they set. You have to expect that and then know what to do.
You also have to have good self-care.
Yes.
You have to be able to not take your work home with you.
Yeah. Except for me, who literally works at home.
Yeah.
And you, who literally works at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So qualities, I don't know. To me, Ryder, the number one quality that tells me that somebody would be good at this career, are you an empathic, intuitive person who naturally connects with other people and they tend to approach you seeking support and advice and guidance?
Mm-hmm.
If you've kind of tended to fill that role in your friendship groups and your family groups, and it's just sort of who you naturally are, it's very likely that this is a great profession for you because you're sort of wired in that way. But there are tons of different therapists and tons of different types. There's therapists that are not deeply empathic, but more sciencey.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of different types of us. So at the end of the day, if you want to help people, that's it.
Might not be a bad idea, too, to find a therapist in your community.
That's a great
Get to meet them
start.
and talk to them and get an idea of what that's actually like before you invest all the time into going into school.
That's exactly what I did, Radish. I was a teacher and I thought I wanted to be a therapist. and I wanted to, understand if it would be a good fit. So I called up a therapist in my community. I asked him if he would have coffee with me and just let me ask him questions, and respected his time because I knew that, his time is literally money. And we sat down, and I had my list of questions, and I said, okay, I'm going to ask you a bunch. If there's anything you don't want to answer, just say pass. And I interviewed him. And basically at the end of that meeting, I was like, I really like this person. I see myself in this person. He inspires me. And everything he was answering made me feel like I would really enjoy the profession. And so that ultimately for me was a big, big marker where that was a pivot point where I was like, I'm definitely going through this.
As a musician, check out the book, This Is Your Brain on Music, The Science of a Human Obsession by Daniel Levitin.
Yes.
Good book.
Really good.
You'll
and
like
also, musical therapy is becoming increasingly popular.
Oh, definitely.
It's not a siloed discipline yet where it's like you get licensed as a musical therapist, nor do I really think it should be. But it is a technique. And there's more and more people that are playing with that and incorporate that into addictions work especially. So that's actually an area that you could, kind of specialize in maybe and kind of grow a practice that surrounds that.
Yep.
Also, if you're interested in video game therapies, which you're not, you're interested more in game addiction. I don't know if you saw this, Nick, but the FDA recently approved the very first ADHD video game.
I did
as
see
a
that.
form of treatment.
I did see that.
It's prescription only. So it's a very I actually watched a video on it, and it's really interesting. So it's really cute that they're starting to expand into these new ways.
Yeah, very cute. That's what I thought too.
Cute, yeah. But thanks, Radish. Thanks for finding our podcast. Thanks for being interested in it. Thanks for going deep into the back catalog and finding episode 3. We haven't gotten to erasing all those yet, but we will.
It only gets better.
Yeah, well.
Until it starts to get worse.
Until it starts to get worse, yeah. Yeah. It's funny because we had that question about the broness of the show. Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, I don't think we started out that way. I think in the beginning, it's much more, it's like professional with a little bit of an edge.
Yeah.
And then over time, I blame Jacob. I think that
There's definitely a turning point when we brought Jacob on.
That was pretty much
fair.
what happened.
It's fair.
Things just suddenly just became more loose and relaxed, and we were mostly always inebriated. I think that was Jacob's time.
I'm a fun guy.
He brings the party. Anyway, Radish, we hope you'll join our ranks, man. Always happy to hear from somebody interested in being a therapist, and definitely look into a professional association, the American Counseling Association. You could find them in every one of the 50 states, and they usually have a chapter in your state, and you can connect with them and ask questions. And a lot of times they'll connect you with a professional, and you can be mentored in your community and learn where to go.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome to the profession.
And if you'd like to become a patron,
which you totally should, Radish, since
yes,
we just gave you professional
and then
advice.
we would thank you and acknowledge you when you become a THERAPAL, THERAPOD, or THERADACTYL.
Or a TheraProducer.
Yes, but we don't have any today because we're recording this a week
from
early.
the past.
So
you see, guys, we recorded this in 1969, but you're hearing it in 1995.
Right. So anyway, if we have any new listeners, we're sorry. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Anybody who became a subscriber to patreon.com/therapy, sorry that we didn't acknowledge you. This is from the past. But we do want to acknowledge our Illuminati fan club, the THERAPRODUCERS. Thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie, Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury, Ellie O'Dare, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Dawn, and ex officio board members Crazy Banana Scoop and Gray Whitaker.
If you would like to hear this episode uncut and unedited and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That is all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening the episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link we provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys, and now at patreon.com/therapy.
If you want to submit a question to the show, ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Cleopatra the Hutt.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.